Good morning and welcome to the Morning Report. My name is Millie. Trust that you are well today. We're going to enjoy some of our 7 weeks coffee. Go to 7weekscoffee.com and use the code Morning Report for your own 7 weeks coffee. Coffee that actually saves lives. Let's get it started. There is a figure that many Americans recognize instantly. Even if they don't have a language for her, she is earnest. She is indignant. She is perpetually offended on behalf of others. She speaks the language of compassion while enforcing ideological conformity with surprising aggression. She dominates school board meetings, nonprofit boards, HR departments, activist churches, and protest lines. She insists she's protecting the vulnerable, yet leaves damage wherever she goes. We're going to call her Miss Millie. Miss Millie is not every white woman. She's not even every liberal white woman. She's a distinct cultural and political archetype produced by a specific ideological environment that's rewarded by modern progressive institutions. She believes herself to be virtuous and indispensable and morally superior. And in practice, she has become one of the most harmful forces in contemporary American civic life. Understanding Miss Millie is not about gender warfare or cheap grievance politics. It's about diagnosing a pattern that explains why so many well-intentioned movements collapse into chaos, and why institutions rot from the inside, and why communities that are endlessly helped never seem to improve. Now, Miss Millie emerges from a paradox. She is told that she is simultaneously privileged beyond measure, but morally obligated to atone for it. She's informed that her race places her at the top of a hierarchy of guilt, while her gender grants her a protected moral voice. The result is a powerful psychological cocktail: guilt without accountability and authority without responsibility. In older social orders, white women often derive their status from family, church, community contribution. Those structures demanded restraint, humility, and service. And as those institutions weakened, many were left unmoored, still seeking meaning, still desiring moral clarity, but now without boundaries. Progressive politics fill the void. Because in this new framework, Miss Millie does not need to build or fix or sacrifice. She only needs to signal. Her value is measured not by outcomes, but by intensity. How loudly she denounces, how quickly she reacts, and how aggressively she polices language. Activism becomes identity, and identity becomes currency. So at the heart of Miss Millie's behavior is a syndrome we're going to call savior syndrome. She does not see herself as an equal partner with the communities she claims to support. She sees herself as a guardian, a translator, a moral intermediary. She believes marginalized people are perpetually endangered and incapable of navigating the world without her protection. That's not solidarity. That's paternalism. The savior posture allows Miss Millie to occupy the moral high ground while avoiding the risk of actual leadership. She does not have to live with the consequences of the policies that she champions. She does not have to measure success. She does not have to ask whether her interventions work. Her role is validated by intention alone. In fact, improvement is actually dangerous for her status. If communities become self directed, resilient, and independent, the savior becomes unnecessary. So the crisis must never end. We must continue to fight on, regardless. Conditions must always be described as worsening. Progress must be denied or reframed as insufficient. Permanent grievance becomes job security. Ms. Millie insists that she is acting out of care, but her defining impulse is control. Because she controls language, insisting words are violence, all policies are abstractions. She controls discourse, labeling disagreement as harm. She controls institutions, weaponizing HR departments, school policies, and nonprofit boards to enforce ideological compliance. And this is why Miss Millie is disproportionately represented in bureaucratic power centers rather than entrepreneurial or operational roles. She thrives where rules, not results, define success. And under her influence, standards have been replaced with feelings. Accountability is being reframed as cruelty, and authority is justified as protection. The effect is institutional paralysis because schools can't discipline. Some churches can't preach the doctrine. Businesses can't speak honestly. Everything must be filtered through the emotional comfort of the most offended participant. Now, one of the most damaging effects of Miss Millie's worldview is the infantilization of entire populations. She insists certain groups are too fragile for standards, deadlines, competition, or criticism. She lowers expectations while claiming moral superiority. And she calls this equity. The results are devastating, particularly in education, because behavioral chaos is tolerated to avoid trauma. Academic rigor is abandoned to avoid harm. And failure is explained away rather than comforted. Students are robbed of discipline, mastery, and confidence, all in the name of kindness. And Miss Millie doesn't live with the consequences. The kids do. Miss Millie's saviorism cannot tolerate dissent, particularly from the people she claims to help. Black conservatives, religious minorities, working class parents, and women who reject progressive orthodoxy are treated as threats to the narrative. Their lived experience is completely dismissed. Their autonomy is denied. They are accused of betrayal, internalized oppression, or ignorance. This is not empowerment. This is ideological colonization. So Miss Millie believes that she knows better. Even more than those living the reality, because her moral framework grants her interpretive authority. In her world, disagreement is not evidence of diversity. It's evidence of moral failure. Perhaps the most corrosive feature of Miss Millie's activism is the absence of cost. She can support policies that increase crime while living in gated neighborhoods. She can undermine border enforcement while remaining economically insulated. She can demand radical social experiments while her own children attend private schools or protected districts. So when policies fail, the fallout, well, it lands somewhere else. The insulation allows her to remain emotionally extreme without corrective feedback. There's no reason to reconsider, no reason to moderate, no reason to learn. Failure becomes someone else's fault, often the very people that she claimed to defend. Miss Millie sees herself as righteous, and righteousness breeds cruelty when unchecked by humility. She justifies censorship as safety, social ostracism as accountability, character assassination as justice, because she believes her intentions are pure. She excuses behavior she would condemn in others. This is how speech codes replace dialogue. This is how mobs replace debate. This is how institutions rot under the weight of moral enforcement. Where Miss Millie runs amok, communities are weaker, institutions are brittle, and trust is shattered. Because schools fail to educate, churches abandon doctrine, nonprofits perpetuate dependency, and civic discourse collapses. And all the while, Miss Millie congratulates herself for caring. One of the deepest ironies is this: Miss Millie believes she is fighting oppression, yet she recreates it in softer language. She governs without consent. She punishes dissent. She denies agency. She enforces orthodoxy. She moralizes power. The only difference is branding. The answer is not contempt. It is rejection of saviorism in favor of stewardship. Because stewardship respects agency. Stewardship demands accountability. It measures results and requires humility. Communities do not need Miss Millie's outrage. They need truth, standards, opportunity, and freedom. Miss Millie did not set out to be destructive. She was shaped by incentives that reward moral display over measurable good. But intentions do not negate outcomes. If America is to recover civic trust, rebuild institutions, and restore dignity to public life, it must name this pattern clearly and refuse to reward it. Not every problem needs a savior. Some need restraint. Some need honesty. Some need adults willing to step back and let people rise on their own. Miss Millie must learn that compassion without humility is not kindness at all. It's control. Run amok. My name is Willie Lawson. Thank you again for coming to the Mona Report. The Mona Report is a production of fightbackmedia.com, fightbackmedia.com, and fightbackmedia.com. Until we see you again, go out there and learn to love somebody, and for goodness sakes, I'll take care of yourself. We will see you when we see you. Bye-bye now.